cutbait.
Whew, that's a fat one. That's what we come for right there. There he is. There he goes. Oh, this is a good one. This is a good one.
Ooh. That's a big one there.
Hey guys, before we get into the how-to of catching mullet, yes, with a hook and line, I do want you guys to see the action we had today. So hope you enjoy the video, and then watch till the end. I'll come back on and explain to you everything we did today. So here's the technique. I got my cork out in the water. I got my chum here. So I'm gonna reach in, grab a clump, ball it up, underhand toss it, and then bring your cork right into it as quickly as possible. So they're just now starting to fire up a little bit and respond to my chum. So what I do is, I'm gonna toss my cork out a little bit further than I want, get me a hand of this chum, underhand chunk it, and get my cork in it as quickly as possible. And then watch for the bite. See that swirl right there? I don't know if you saw that on camera, but that's that mullet. There was a bite. So they're starting to respond to the chum. They're starting to nibble. So it should happen here pretty soon. There you go. There's your first mullet in the bucket. They're all around my cork right now. Hope you guys can see that. All around my cork. There we go. Oh, it's on now. It's on now. Hooked him in two places. Oh, well, I missed that one. Important thing is get right back in there quickly if you miss one. Oh, there it was. Oh, that was a good one too. There he is. Missed that bite. Missed that bite. Oh, that's not what I wanted. That is a stink shad. Do not touch that fish. If you touch that fish, this is a shad. We call him a stink shad. If you touch that fish, he will put a slime coat on your hand that you will not get off. There he goes. Oh, this is a good one. This is a good one. Ugh. Woo! That's a big one there. You think that one will make a sandwich?
Oh yeah. little bit too small for you. Put him in mine.
All right.
Hey, boy.
Whew. That's a fat one. That's what we come for right there. So we're talking about how to fish for mullet. Now you might be thinking, okay, you cast net them, right? That's not what I'm talking about. Okay, you snatch hook them, or you spear gun them, or you shoot them, or you gig them. Nope, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm literally talking about fishing for mullet, hook and line, catching them in the mouth. A lot of people don't realize you can do this, but yes, you can. Now, first of all, let's talk about why. Well, actually, you may make fun of me for saying this, but mullet are extremely fun to catch. When it comes to a fish, it's gonna give you long runs, peel drag, jump, thrash, just go ballistic on the hook. A mullet fights extremely hard, so they're super fun to catch. Everyone I've ever taken mullet fishing have a fantastic time. Second of all, they're actually good to eat. Now, some people know this, some people don't. I don't really particularly like them fried, although a lot of people do. However, when you take a bigger mullet and you split it open and you smoke it, which I like a spicy seasoning on mine, but smoke a mullet, it is delicious. In fact, my nickname for it is river bacon, and I'm sure you're gonna borrow that. Feel free, river bacon, because it does taste a lot like bacon. It is delicious. So they're fun to catch, fun to eat. Third reason why you can catch mullet is if you are a fisherman that fishes a lot of salt water, whether it's deep sea or inshore, flats, intercoastal waterway, fishing around bridges, you use cut bait quite a bit. Mullet is phenomenal cut bait. It has a nice oily quality to it, which makes a large number of predator fish absolutely love eating it. In fact, for deep sea fishing, one of my favorite baits is a mullet head. It is like candy to grouper and snapper. So how to catch a mullet? Well, I'm gonna show you how to do it, all right? This is the simple rig that I'm using, because I'm sure that's what you're really asking is, what rig are you using? Now you can do it one of two ways, okay? I got a 2-hook rig here. I've got a cork, a swivel, 2 hooks, and a sinker. Now I'm gonna go in detail about how I've perfected this rig over time to be the most effective for mullet fishing. Some people use 4, 5, 6 hooks or more, and some people use sabiki rigs, which have a ton of hooks on them. You can do that, that's fine, but you're not really gonna catch no more than 2 mullet at a time. I've hardly ever seen anyone catch more than 2 at a time. And all those extra hooks, when you're trying to get him off the hook, I can't tell you how many times I've seen people hook themselves in the hand or spend all day trying to untangle a mess. So to me, 2 hooks is all you need. Now, I've got a cork on top. You could really use monofilament fishing line for your main line. Now, I'm a braided line guy. This rod and reel has braided line on it. But you can use mono if you want, because mullet fishing is not glamorous, okay? You don't need to have super sensitive line. You don't need to be casting very far. In fact, you want to keep your lure, your rig close enough to you where you can see that cork really, really well. So it's very different from most types of fishing. So you can use monofilament. You don't even have to have the most expensive rod and reel. This is Academy Sports H2O Express brand rod and reel combo. By the way, if you got Academy Sports near you, H2O Express brand, that is their brand. They actually have some really good stuff for a really good price. No, I'm not sponsored by Academy Sports, but Academy, if you're watching, holla at your boy, okay? So let's talk about your rig for a second here. I'm using 20 to 30 pound fluorocarbon leader line. Now, do you need that strong leader line? Not really, no. I mean, you can set your drag and catch them on a much, much lighter line than that for the leader. But the reason why I have heavier leader line is because they are going to flip around a lot, and this is going to get tangled up. And by using a stiffer or thicker leader line like fluorocarbon or a heavier mono, it is going to reduce the tangles you're going to get, and it's going to be easier to get them untangled. A swivel is going to be a necessity. Like I said, these mullet, they spin, they twist, they do all kind of stuff. You are going to need a swivel or else you're going to have a lot of twist ups, okay? So if you notice, I've got my cork, my swivel, and then the first hook is very close to the top. In fact, I'm probably going to fish that cork just like that. I'm going to fish that bottom hook right under the cork. Now you can catch mullet on the bottom, but for the most part, when I'm fishing for mullet, especially when I'm chumming them, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, I like to have that first hook not far into the cork, and most of the times that's the hook you're going to catch the mullet on, right underneath the cork. Sometimes I actually hit your cork as well. Then I've got a second one below that, enough distance apart to where one cannot get tangled on the other. And my bass casting sinker on the bottom, I have a loop knot. Now what I like about this loop knot here is that at different times I may want to change out to a lighter or heavier sinker, okay, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. And that loop knot allows me to change out that sinker without having to cut and retie. And then of course I've got my hooks on loops as well. So let's talk about why I've done this, okay? Now a simple way of doing this rig is to buy a long shank hook and just tie the line, the leader line directly to the long shank hook, whatever knot you normally use, and then just leave you a long tag end to where you can tie another long shank hook there and then do the sinker. So a lot of people use that rig and it works. I like a loop because it allows my hook to kind of freely move within that loop, because the mullet are going to come up and barely kiss at that bait, okay? And so I like having a loop because that hook can easily swing right into his mouth, and I feel like it does increase your hookup ratio. But if you notice, right at the end of the loop, I don't know if you can see that, I tied a knot, okay? That way, even though I have a loop, this hook cannot slide all the way to the main line because there's a knot there that stops it. So I make my loop, I put the line through the hook and then finish my loop, then I make a knot on the end. So this can dance around, but it can't slide back, okay? And then of course, I got my sinker. Now, let's talk about bait that you use. A lot of people will use, like I mentioned, a sabiki rig, or they'll take a white piece of rubber. They'll actually buy like a straight white rubber worm like you would use for bass fishing. And they just cut it up in little pieces. I mean, little chiclet or tic tac size pieces of white rubber, and they'll put that on the hook. I like using fatback. I was gonna show you some today, but I've been to several grocery stores and can't find it. But I'm sure I will end up finding some. But I like fatback. It's fatty, it's salty, puts a little more flavor on the hook. You can use actually worms as well, but you're gonna end up having to rebait a lot, whereas the fatback stays on the hook really, really well. Okay, how do I determine cork size and sinker size? Well, here's the thing. Because mullet typically don't take the cork under, it's not like fishing for most fish with a cork where they're gonna take the cork under. A mullet typically does not do that. There's two ways you can fish for them. Either use so light of a weight that your cork will lay sideways. That way when the mullet touches it, you'll see it stand up real quick. If you see that cork stand up real quick, set the hook. A mullet is not gonna sit there and keep eating it and swallow it down. That's just not what they do. They're gonna come up and they're just gonna suck on it. So if you've got that cork laying flat on the water and you see it stand up real quick, you gotta set the hook. If you see a ripple form around the cork, set the hook. If you just feel like setting the hook, set the hook. I'm telling you, a lot of people when they go mullet fishing for the first time, they don't start catching mullet until like the last few minutes of the trip because it takes them that long to get tuned in to the bite. But I found a simpler way for that. What I do is I get the sinker and cork ratio just right so that this cork barely stays above the water line. Now the thing about this cork barely staying above the water line is that when the mullet bites it, it's much more likely to go under. So that's what I do. I find a cork and sinker ratio so this cork barely stays above the water so that when that mullet barely touches that hook, that cork is gonna go under, and then I can set the hook. Like I said, you've got to be fast. These fish are like ninjas, and then when you hook one, get ready because all heck is gonna break loose. So this is my simple mullet rig here, and as you've seen in the video, it absolutely positively works. Now, chum, the last thing I gotta mention is very important. These mullet love chum. Now what I use and what's been used for a long time to chum up mullet is chicken feed. It's called laying mesh or layer crumble, or yeah, that's what it's called. It's chicken feed, that's all it is. And all I do is I just take me a bucket, I put some chicken feed in it, and then I get some oatmeal. Just go buy a container of cheap oatmeal and mix, I would say just a little bit, maybe like a handful of oatmeal in a gallon of chicken feed. Now, why the oatmeal? Those oat flakes floating down through the water column, the mullet will eat. It also attracts them. but the oat also gets sticky. So when you mix water in with the chicken feed and the oatmeal, that oatmeal makes it clump, and you need to make a nice clump so you can throw it out for chum. And of course, you'll see that in the video. All I'm doing is I'm casting out, I'm reaching down, grabbing a ball of chum. Watch your cork, because a lot of times they'll bite your cork while you're waiting to do this. And then I'll underhand toss that chum, and as quickly as I can, when that chum hits the water and starts to disperse into a cloud, I want to have my cork in that cloud, because the mullet are going to rush that cloud of chicken feed, and then they see your white rubber or your fat back on your hook, and they're going to bite it. The mullet are really attracted to sound and of course the smell and the flavor of the chicken feed, but because they're attracted to sound, when they start biting really good, sometimes you don't even have to throw chum. All you got to do is actually just pop your cork, and that sound and the bubbles that are created when you pop your cork in the water will attract them, and you'll get a bite that way as well. So guys, it's a fun way to catch mullet. They're a blast, they taste good, they make good bait. And to me, you catch more this way than cast netting. Sometimes I'll watch people come up with a cast net while we're catching mullet, and they'll try to cast net them, and they ruin the fishing for the entire day, because after you've been bombing them with cast nets, they typically kind of want to get out of there. But with the feeding them and catching them on hook and line, they just keep coming, keep coming, keep coming. So guys, I hope this helps. Go out there and catch you some mullet. So here is the
Fat back.
that we're using for bait. It's not bacon, it's not salt pork. There's not really any meat on here. It's just all fat. It has a real tough layer there that makes it stay on the hook a little bit better. So that's what we're using for bait. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this open, which seems to be harder than I was expecting. They don't really want you getting in here. Package is kicking my butt. You're not gonna need a whole lot. I always make too much. I mean, I guess it's better to have too much than not enough, but this is so tough. It's gonna stay on the hook really well. It's gonna last a lot of fish, and it's got a saltiness to it and a fattiness to it. So when you mullet fish in warm water, this fat starts to kind of slowly melt and put some scent out in the water. And you know, I just think it's really good bait. So we're gonna go ahead and cut it. Now, I'm gonna show you the size pieces that I want. You want really small pieces, because mullet have really small mouths. If you put a whole chunk on like this, that's gonna be way too big. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna cut it about right down the middle, like that. And then I'm just gonna take little pieces off of there, little cubes off of there. And you can always put another cube on the hook. If your one cube is kind of getting deteriorated and you need a little more, you can always do that. But so here's the size we're looking at. I mean, you can see in relation to my finger, that's really small, but that's perfect. Perfect little size to fit on a little small hook that mullet can just kind of nibble right in his mouth. You know, a mullet's mouth is not even much bigger than what I can put my thumb in. Very small mouth. So this is a perfect size little bait for him to just kind of suck up in there, and then you set the hook into him. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut you know, quite a bit of these. Like I said, you don't need a lot, but you can always freeze them and reuse them later for bait. Haven't really tried this bait for brim or other fish, but I'm sure it would work. So post in the comments if you try this with other things, but I know it does work with mullet. So here's the end result and the reason why we do this. As you can see here, I've got 3 2-gallon freezer bags of the small ones, quote unquote the small ones. Those are actually still some big mullet, and I'll use that for deep sea cut bait or even flats cut bait. But here's the big thing, check this out, come look at these babies. Smoked mullet. If you could only smell it. I call this river bacon for a reason. It's actually one of the most delicious fish that I've ever eaten in my life. So a successful trip. We're gonna go again next week.